Welcome to the Patron Studio podcast. My name is Diego Caetano, and today I'm going to be talking to the great Tom Fountainhead. He's an amazing guitarist, and he dominates fretless guitar, and it's just fucking amazing. In this conversation, we're going to talk about his solo career, collaborations, the life of a musician, and most of all, mental health. It is really hard nowadays to control anxiety for our generation, and all the obligations that brings being a musician. It's a solo entrepreneurship, and Tom has a lot of knowledge about this, and we're gonna listen to it from his own mouth. For an unlimited time, we're gonna skip the live sessions part because it's too much work for the moment, because I don't have a studio where I do everything, and I was changing rehearsal rooms. It's really complicated. It was really too much work. And for me, it was more important to have guests that talk, to have these conversations and move forward and not get stopped by the part of the live music. Whenever I get a bigger studio and I can do everything from there and I offer like a really nice infrastructure, then I will come back to the live music. But no. I also have been a while out of the internet and the YouTube channel. I was overwhelmed, so I took 2 months out and did some normal stuff, and I was taking care of myself. So let's go and talk with Tom. Let's go. Introducing today's sponsor, Waves, the true pioneers in high-quality audio plugins. Trusted and revered by our most cherished producers and engineers, Waves boasts an extensive collection of top-notch VSTs that have revolutionized the industry. Personally, I relied on Waves plugins in my mixes since 2007, and they've never let me down. From precise surgical EQ to authentic analog emulation, SSL change, compressors, and cutting-edge synths, Waves plugins offer the complete package for your production needs. Now, here's exciting news. Waves has recently introduced affordable monthly subscriptions. Fuck yeah! This means you can access their entire range of plugins without breaking the bank. With a monthly subscription, you will be joining the ranks of industry leaders who have trusted Waves for an eternity. By using our link in the description, you not only secure these incredible plugins, but also contribute to our growth. So why wait? Elevate your audio game with Waves today.
What's up, Tomato?
What's up? So,
Good to see you, buddy.
good to see you too, and thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy.
And it's only the hottest day of the year.
It's only the hottest day of the year, and we have lights, like artificial suns over here. Fuck that. You just arrived from a tour in India.
Yes.
I want to know everything about that shit.
Well, first you have to entertain me because I'm still jet lagged. So lube me up socially and make me talkative.
Okay, challenging.
I'm flipping the script here.
Yeah, you're flipping the script. Wow, I'm really interested about. Look, I'm gonna tell you what I'm up to. I took a break from producing for others and this mixing and like being there like a soldier of the industry for clients and all of this stuff. Just took a break from that, and now I'm working on my solo music because it has been always there, and it's always the thing I wanted to do, my music, and go on stage and ba 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 ba. And since I came to Berlin, I have been just working on this, being a producer and mixing and this and that and sessions and that. And the actual dream was always like put there, like, yeah, just once has been, I don't know, some songs I have composed like 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. They're still not published. And yeah, it's just yeah. I feel happy that I could take that turn. Like, okay, all of this got just now it's the time for that to take a break, and now I can concentrate on my songs. And now I have this set of goals. Okay, this mixing, making video, contacting artists to make the art, this whole publishing, preparing the social media, preparing everything, and I'm fucking looking forward to hit the stage.
Right.
And September might be the first date, and
The first live date.
yes,
Right. Awesome.
I have no fucking clue. I mean, I know you had to
Dude, that's great though. I'm so excited for you because these next couple of months are gonna be a new level, and you're gonna level up, and you have to level up, and the universe is giving you a few not so subtle hints about what's gonna happen.
yeah.
And it demands sacrifice. That's always the case. If you're entering into a new phase of your career, to your new music making, that's always been the case for me, and that's what I talk about with my clients too, like in coaching. You have to expect and to honor the fact that there's sacrifice with anything that you gain. It's like a give and take with the universe. It sounds very woo-woo, but I really do believe it. And
Is there an option in which you only take?
ask your girlfriend, your wife. Right. So, unfortunately, no. Seriously, I have experienced this every time, and now also with the like this phase that I'm entering, where there's more focus on my solo music and solo touring and being a headliner and all these things. Tons of sacrifice, tons of things that you have to let go, and you have to just accept as a thing of the past in order for you to do that. You need that clarity, you need that focus, and you need to channel all of your energies to do that.
Yeah, and for you, which are the biggest things you had to sacrifice in order to achieve this? I mean, first you have to travel a lot, like being away from home. Do you take that as a break? Like, finally, I'm not at home.
No, that's not the sacrifice for me, because that is I like the traveling was always for me a part of like a very welcome part of the job and the calling of being a musician. I love to travel, and even if I don't travel for work, I like to travel on my own. So that's cool. Now, if you want to know the moment, like the thing of sacrifice right now, so I've been doing working for other bands, working for other people so much in the last couple of years, and I got very, very fortunate. Like post-pandemic, where everything was really not safe and secure, and nobody really had a job and like a perspective.
Been there.
Yeah, and I got really fortunate to like come out of the pandemic. First, I played musical, like right after things opened up. Like had a job in the movie industry, got to mix for soundtracks, then did Dolby Atmos, spatial audio things. Got into that. More into lecturing, more into coaching people. My coaching business took off a little bit, and then all these things that diversified, and then made sure I still had an income. And then everything opened up. Bands started touring again. Boom, the phone rings, and then it's this band which shall not be named. And then I spent the last part of like the better part of 2022 playing all these huge festivals around the world, right? And playing between 10 to 35,000 people a night, which I had been wanting to do since I was a kid. And I was so unhappy doing it. It just turned out that it was not the situation I was wanting it to be, and I was just miserable all the time in that band, in that situation. And then it just happened that I had this realization, I need to give this up. Like I need to sacrifice this dream that I had of being on a big stage and playing to a shit ton of people. You know, I mean, let's be honest, when we're musicians, that's what we dream of. Every single one of us, that's what we dream of when we're a kid. Like we want to be on a big stage. But
isn't it like an horizon always? like you will never get to the horizon. And for
Maybe.
me, I also had that experience of playing for a lot of people, but on Carnival. And
Yeah.
I get there are like 10,000 people, but they're not there for what your soul wants to say, for your message. You're not really connecting. You're just entertaining in a something. They bought a ticket for something else.
Yeah, for me, it's really more about the give and take, the sacrifice. Like you get to the horizon, all right, if you're lucky or if you work hard enough, but then you are at that point and you realize, well, this is not what I expected it to be. Like the sacrifice is too big, or like the parameters of it are just not for me, and you just have to be open enough to see that and to accept it. And in that moment, it just happened that I was really feeling that I'm done doing this, like no more. And then at the same time, it just happened to open up that my new solo album was shaping up to be done. And then I just started to reach out to people, and suddenly it's like, hey, you want to do your first headliner shows, your first headliner tour? And after so many years in the music industry, now suddenly become a headlining live act, which I had never really considered on my own. And so that's what I'm talking about. This is the sacrifice, like the give and take. I now get to do a whole nother thing and try to build this up and give it my full attention. And it wouldn't be possible if I were still with that band and still doing the session guitar thing like these last couple of years, because the intensity and just the commitment that takes, people don't see that. They just see you on stage, but it's a lot. It's a lot.
This stage, it's 1 hour or two of your day, and first you have to come up until that point in which you are, whatever you're doing has the attention of an X amount of people in order to make that happen. And there's years, your whole life leads to that point. And also I think I view what you're talking about sacrifices is in every moment you have hundreds of doors open in front of you, but you can only go through one. And once you close that door, you don't have the key to open it and go back and choose. No, there's always a next room. And I think that's what I understand from your path. Okay, should I do stadium tours with X band that hires me and feel this lack of connection? Or maybe, was it for you that I said, okay, I play for a lot of people, check. Now I want it to be, now the horizon is looking different from this peak of this mountain.
Maybe a little bit of everything. For me, it was mostly about the vibe and just the feeling that I had that I wasn't safe and I wasn't feeling good about being in that band with those people. Emotional safety is a big topic. Like, even though we're dudes, I think we should be allowed to feel that and to talk about that. And that entire experience was emotionally very unsafe. Physically unsafe as well, but that's another thing.
Yeah, I remember texting with you, and I was having like a kind of chronicle, and I just couldn't believe that someone has to put themselves to that.
Apparently, that is a requirement. So yeah, that being said, it just, I also do believe that you give what you get, right? And if you're on stage in front of 30,000 people, and you're just delivering, and you're not really able to fully commit, to fully be in it, and to fully connect with people, because just the situation doesn't allow you to. That's not why I became a musician.
Yeah,
really. And if there's somebody who can take that spot in that band and really connect with the material and with the people and be on that level and just deliver that thing with 100% energy and commitment, then it's better that I step aside and do something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where I then get to deliver 100% in my lane to my audience, to whatever it is that I find engaging and interesting and emotionally satisfying.
I was watching your pictures and videos from your small tour then, and it's not 30,000 people.
Certainly not.
I saw you like exploding, like delivering. And also the only person on stage. Because when you were about to do that tour, you were telling me about it, And I didn't ask. I said, "What? Who's gonna play the drums and the bass? Who's gonna sing?" It's like, oh God! But luckily, you just did it this way.
Yeah.
For like first time and way less stress. I thought.
Don't say that too quickly.
Okay.
I think personally, I would have been a lot less stressed out by the situation if there were other people on stage.
All right.
I mean, technically, there's, a lot more loose ends to cover, a lot more equipment, flights, and everything. But just for me on stage, I would have been so much more comfortable at the beginning of the tour with other people. And that was what I hoped it would be, But just financially, since this is the first time, I've never been like, it's not only my first tour in India or my first headliner tour, but it's my first time playing my music on stage in front of people ever. So it's like, it's not even that it's the next level or something, but it's just a completely new thing. And so there was no financial way to make this happen and to expect to recoup and balance it out financially if not only would have been me, but like 2, 3, 4 other people having to get paid, having all the flights that we would have had to book, because India is so vast and so huge that you have to travel by plane from city to city. It just doesn't make any sense otherwise.
Yeah.
Not like in Germany where you drive to Hamburg in 3 hours and you're good.
I can imagine also the infrastructure is not really that good.
Yeah, that's not really the issue, but just the vastness of it, the distances. So bringing more people would have just been such a financial risk that in the end, it just turned out, if I want to do this, I have to do it on my own.
Yeah. I think it also sounds like the smartest thing in every kind of aspect, because again, your first time, when you're new material and all of that, and I think maybe the pressure is a lot because you are the only person on stage, but that kind of pushed you to give that extra couple 10%.
A lot more than that.
Yeah, I mean, on the pictures you're really like exploding.
Yeah,
and when you're playing for others, you're giving your best. You're being a professional and doing everything you have to do. But I saw you like kind of. Am I allowed to say happy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
I saw some shine in there. And how did it feel from the first perspective?
So I would say that, like, just as human beings, we want to be comfortable, right? And so I would have been a lot more comfortable playing with other people on this tour. And then you also get to hide to an extent, even though you're on stage in front of people. There's ways to hide behind the other people because you share the responsibility, you share the Aufmerksamkeit.
Attention.
Yeah, thank you. You share the attention, the admiration, but also the criticism. Everything is divided. And that gives you the opportunity to hold back and also to maybe lean back a little bit and to like lean on other people's shoulders if you mess up and all these different things.
Yeah.
Well, shocking news, breaking news. If you're alone on stage, none of that's an option. So I was terrified. I was terrified of that. And just
in every show equally, or just the first ones, or?
Well, that's the thing. What really is the most interesting aspect of this tour for me, and the most valuable lesson, and like the leveling up that I experienced, it wasn't really in the playing at all, or in the touring, or just in like all the technical aspects of it. So, like, you know, a lot of times when you're playing session guitar for a band, it's like it's a new scenario. Like the music is different, the material is different. You don't have much time. You get like a week to learn the material. So it's really a matter of leveling up and like living up to the challenge, like fitting in musically, getting the job done, like the skill. It's a skill thing. Now, what I found out on this tour was there's other layers that are equally as important, and they're really fucking scary to a dude like me who's like anxious by nature and has like a history of mental illness in the family, and is like struggling with his place in the world, has like crazy imposter syndrome and all these things, a crazy overthinker, like all these things. And then boom, you're on stage and you're alone and you have to talk to the audience. You have to entertain people. And in order for you to do that, you have to be commanding the room. You have to you have to have the charisma. You have to have the stage presence. You have to have the persona, as I like to call it. And suddenly you have to be kind of like a little bit of a different human being.
Yeah.
At the very least, you have to dissociate all your usual bullshit in the moment.
Absolutely.
And I think without really thinking about how that would be, or even having the words before that happened, that was the thing I was most terrified of. Having no place to hide, just being myself and having to deal with the fact that, yeah, sure, it's my music, it's my skill set, it's my guitar playing, and people are there to see me and my music. But then that also means that they're there to see this mess.
Yeah.
That sometimes all of us are, and I certainly am. Like sometimes I fucking struggle with everything. And so the idea that people come, and also people had been flying from city to city to right, and to see multiple shows.
That's
and just
incredible.
And there were people like singing the songs and the shreddy stuff, and like, whoa. Insane. But I'm
Those
saying,
are cool
it's like,
fans,
and then all of that is awesome, but the responsibility that comes with that is, I really felt that, and I wanted to live up to those expectations. And before the tour started, I was mainly thinking about how am I going to play, how am I going to sound, how do I set this up so that it's going to be of value to people and they get like a worthwhile experience, even though it's just me on stage. And then first show, I go on stage, lights, camera, action, as they say, and then play the first song. Look into people's faces, stare into the phones that they're holding up, like, oh my God. And then stepping up to the mic and saying hello to people. And it was literally like something burst. It was like, how? Like, what do I do with this situation? Like, how am I going to be this person? And then 5 seconds from now, once I touch the mic, how I'm going to be that other person that people need? And then it just happened.
Wow.
I don't know if that is a healthy assessment of the situation, but stepping into that role, that was the crux of the tour. And from the first show, how that evolved and how I developed that persona.
That's like a new corner of the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
You can you practice the instrument, you practice the networking and this and that, and then now there's this other thing that it needs time for you to figure it out and practice it. I mean, I'm not saying to practice alone at home and pretend, by doing it, by putting yourself into the ocean.
Yeah.
That now you're figuring this thing that you say just burst, like, oh, this is absolutely new.
Yeah.
And I had to figure this out while I'm doing it.
Oh man,
Did you get any feedback from people?
oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How was it?
Well, first of all, you have to say that, dude, audiences are so fucking into it and so enthusiastic. I mean, different levels on different shows, but there were some shows, like the bigger ones, where I was out there like signing and talking and taking photos like for 2 hours after the show each night. So it really felt like almost every human being there, like spending money on a ticket to see me. Also, we toured with this amazing band called Gutslit from India. Like not just local heroes, but they're like the poster boys, the face of like brutal technical death metal in India.
Wow.
And they're really fucking good. And also like making splashes in Europe and America and everything. So they're really on their game. And so just saying that also people were there to see them. But they play there all the time, right? It's not a novelty thing. So it was kind of like a combination between me being the novelty factor and then them being like the reliable source of like a good, metal band bringing the energy.
Yeah.
So yeah, and now I completely lost my train of thought.
Feedback, people talk to you.
So I like the first couple of shows were good feedback, but I was still trying to figure things out. And you could tell from the feedback that was like, yeah, that's cool. Like, I really like to hear the songs and you play and everything. And I think you got a good thing going on stage, but it's like not 100% like really convinced. And then from show to show, it just got better and better. And I think somehow I broke that thing open and just became that personality, that frontman energy. And I think I understand the struggles of being in the spotlight as a frontman better now, and what that entails and like the toll it takes. And
which part is the hardest? Before the stage to convert into this person, or when you go back to being
that's such a good question.
Normal.
Dude, that's like, thank you for asking that. Because I guess it's different for different people. And I was talking to the frontman of Gutslit about that. And he's like, dude, like, how do you have any insights to share? How do you do it? And he's like, dude, honest answer, I just fucking love the attention. Because he's very hyper and he's like that person. He just loves to be on stage and entertain people and do silly faces and just use every little space he has to just do wild, crazy shit. And I'm not that way, like just from my starting point. And then, so I found out that I can do it. And I found out how to improve on it and how to move the energy and how to talk to people and just build that up over time. And then there was this point towards the end of the tour, we were playing in Hyderabad. Really good show, sold out. Good pre-sale, good tickets at the door. Just everybody really, really pumped and just awesome venue.
Those are some hard words to listen to post-pandemic.
Yeah.
Sold out. Wow.
It was great. And it's like I think they were hyping it up too and saying, oh, this is like the happening venue in town. This is like people touring in India always have like the best feedback. And I understand why. So it was like, that was like a high point, like a mountain top on the tour where it's like, now we're fucking rolling, right? And also like we had like a couple of days off in town. So I got to rehearse and prepare and tweak the set on stage in that venue on the off days, which was amazing. And then I got to experience like a quintessential musician situation, which I had never done before, or never experienced before, thankfully, which is you're on tour on the other side of the world, and then your girlfriend breaks up with you via text. So fuck that. And so my point is, so then you're building up this persona, you're building up this confidence, you're doing this crazy thing that you've never imagined yourself doing before. And then you have to get up on stage and do it and bring the energy and be that positive, person and smile and take up the energy and just like command the room. And by now you know how to do it. But then nobody tells you what happens after that. And then it's one of the biggest shows and everybody's pumped. And then you go off stage and you're like, okay, where can I just take a breath for a moment and just calm down? And you go, the only place to go is like the smokers lounge outside. Yeah. And then you're like, yeah, nobody's going to be there because it's like raining cats and dogs, whatever. So you go out. Oh man, like 20 people follow you and you're like... You don't even have any space, and people are just constantly asking for pictures and everything. And then there's a big after show party and constantly surrounded by people. And I ended up just breaking down, crying at some point. I was like, fuck. Like, that was not even the situation, but just the discrepancy between this external reality and what people were experiencing and what people were needing to experience, like this positive energy and just this musician that we like and his music that we like. And now he's here and we're having like a great time experiencing all of that and taking memories. And I get all of that. But then there's also my reality. And my reality is like, I don't know. I really don't know how to pull this off. I really don't know how much energy I can give to you. And I see that it's my responsibility and I want to honor that. And I want to like make this experience for everybody who paid a ticket like the best it can be. At the same time, I'm myself and I only have so much to give right now. And at some point I just reached the absolute level of what I can do as a human being. And then I was very fortunate to be in the company of a few really beautiful people who are just
that's what I want
like reading the room and reading it. And it's like a person that I met there and spent a few days, and she was like, let's get you out of here, and just took me out of the situation and gave me the space to like recover.
Wow.
So yeah, don't know what I would have done without her, but. So yeah,
that's really hard.
That was like a little bit off topic, but that was like the trajectory that I went through, and then after that, which had like the biggest, ups and downs on the sine wave of emotional roller coaster. Then for the last couple of shows, I also learned how to command that a bit more, and just to make sure that I have enough energy left, and I have, I can prepare myself for what happens after the show and just be more in the know about what people need, how much space I need, how I can just navigate all of these little batteries inside of you, if that makes sense. And then the last couple of shows were really good.
Excellent. I think also what you just meant is that being on tour and then these problems happen so far away from you. I mean, it's not that you can just 1 second. Let's talk an hour, or let's see what we can. No, it's just so far away. Mm-hmm. It's like your house is burning and you're in India.
For sure, man. House is burning.
How is it possible to be prepared, or did you just figure it out in the moment, or what pieces of knowledge do you take with you after this tour emotionally, and you encountered so many new things, not only in the musician side but this emotional side, and do you think did you get stronger in any point?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, emotional muscles are muscles too, right? And I think I went to the gym pretty hard on that tour. So obviously, I think I'm a stronger, more experienced person after going through this experience and everything that came with that. And I am very blessed and grateful for that to happen. Even like the not so pleasant aspects of it taught me so much. So it's all good.
That's excellent.
Yeah. And now I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, next time alone again? Are you getting like a band, or should it be in India, or you want to try it out here?
All of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah. And again, I'm grateful for the experience of being alone on stage and just navigating all of that and leveling up. So now I have a lot more confidence for the next time. However, obviously, the ideal situation is to take that confidence and apply it to a situation where I have at least 2 more people on stage. And also, like, one of the things that happened on the tour as it progressed was that from the first couple of shows, we were just figuring things out, and I was figuring things out on my own. Then we got to the point where I got to invite other people on stage to jam and to play. And there was like a song that I put in a set list specifically for that. And so I had some really cool guitar players join me for the last couple of shows, and we just had a fucking blast.
Dude, I saw before the tour you were sharing someone playing your music, like learning your music.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, I try to do that.
Okay,
on social media.
How does that feel? Was that also a breaking point? Like the first time, like you saw someone like learning your stuff.
I mean, that was years ago.
Yeah.
I think like the first time I've seen people covering my songs and learning my music would have been around 2015, 16. So when I was in this band called Obscura, when things were kind of blowing up for me in terms of like public perception, that's when that started. And that's always been strange, but also like really flattering. You have to be really, really honest with yourself about like what are you feeling about this, and what are you going to do with that? Because like honestly, man, there's times when you work on a piece of music really hard, and you know it's taking you like beyond your abilities, and you practice for months, and it becomes like the stepping stone for you. And there's this piece that I also played on this tour called Acrasis from that Obscura album, which ended up becoming like a little bit of a benchmark for guitar players, because it's like really intense, really fast, and like this arpeggio section that recurs in the song. It's like if you can nail that, then you're a real guitar player. That kind of stuff. And that took me months to like get to the level where you hear it the way you hear it on the album. And every time I play it, and I have to play it because people demand it. Like, if it was up to me, I would never play it again.
Press the pad and it's
yeah. Exactly. But I have to play it, and it's fine. But every time I dread playing it, because I never have enough time and just space to properly prepare it the way that I would want to play it, that I can play it at home with like no pressure and like no cameras around everything. So it's never 100%, and that just drives me insane. And then at the same time, like somebody tags you on Instagram, and it's this 14-year-old girl from Japan playing it on cameras, apparently in a one take, perfectly. And you're like, so how do I feel about this? I do feel great. I do feel flattered. I think that's a beautiful thing, and I want to inspire people. But now, do I really feel that in the moment, or do I feel self-conscious? Do I feel like, oh, fuck me? You have no business being this good, young lady. Like, and it's all of the above, because it is flattering. It is a beautiful thing, but at the same time, sometimes it does make you feel really shitty, because it confronts you with the reality that you're here and you are preparing with your work. Hopefully, when you're inspiring people, you are preparing the next generation of musicians to rise above, and then to just fucking annihilate you, because that's how it goes, and that's how it's supposed to be. And inspiration from one generation to the next, from one player to the next, and you want people to take what you've done and take it to the next level. Yeah,
that's the only way it goes.
Yeah, that's the way it goes, and it's beautiful. But then you also have an ego. You're also a human being.
Sure, but also there's a difference between learning something that already exists and making something that doesn't exist.
Of course.
And I guess I don't know which methods do you use for composing, but sometimes I write something down that I think it sounds cool, but I'm not thinking if I can play it or not. Then I have to catch up to what I wrote, because I like how it sounds musically. But in the moment I wrote it, I couldn't play that. So you have to catch up with that thing your mind brought, which is very different when you listen to something that's already there and then you figure it out. Let's talk about, I don't know, bands, classic bands. I mean, imagine how Lars Ulrich should feel. I mean, we can say he's playing like shit now, or he makes a lot of mistakes, but he created all of that we are now, we can play with eyes closed, but he brought that from the nothing, from the air, put that thing together.
True. And I go back and forth about this all the time. So here's my current take on it.
Yeah.
I think that you're absolutely right. And there shouldn't be a rule that says, like, he would need to, as the creator of these iconic parts and as creator of these iconic songs that have influenced and enriched the lives of millions of people, there shouldn't be any rule saying he needs to live up to some standard.
Yeah.
Like, if he's not as good as he was in the mid 80s, whatever, he's still Lars Ulrich. At the same time, I feel there's a responsibility that you have. And there's also there's a little word that is called authenticity. And if you can't do something, anymore, then I think it's also an incentive to step away and do something else, and not, kind of dilute the art that you've created. Because you could also say, well, how much better would Metallica be, and Metallica shows would be for people if they had a drummer that could still play those parts. And I've been thinking about this a lot, and in the last couple of weeks, because on this tour, somebody forwarded me a video of the most recent Dream Theater tour. Have you seen that?
I stopped following Dream Theater since years.
Yeah, so
It was my most favorite artistic thing ever in history.
Yeah.
Up to one point in which just like, okay, no.
yeah, I hear you. And I was in their fan club when I was a teenager, so huge band for me back in the day. And same thing, I kind of stopped following what they did, but somebody sent me this video, and it's them playing. So it's Dream Theater, Animals as leaders, and Devin Townsend on their recent tour. Awesome. So they're playing The Spirit Carries On, and it's Devin, and it's I saw that, dude. You see it with Devin on guest vocals and Tosin on second guitar, and it's just it boggles my mind. It really boggles my mind. It's like James, just for those who know, singer of Dream Theater for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
At one point in time, he was amazing. No doubt. And he co-created some of the most iconic albums and vocal lines and lyrics in the genre. It's amazing. Like, he's done his part. But really, like, if we're talking responsibility, isn't it also irresponsible to be taking people's money on a huge arena tour, and then you 100% fully know that this vocalist, this frontman, can't do the job anymore? It's an insult. It's like, don't get me wrong, I really feel for James LaBrie, like the hate that he gets and what he must be confronted with online on a daily basis. It must be fucking insane. But at the same time, like, just be realistic. Like, you can't sing those songs anymore. And maybe that's okay. And maybe you should just, as a band, should decide that this is not a good situation for anybody. It's not good for the fans, and obviously he's not having a great time either.
No, he doesn't look happy at all.
No, he doesn't look happy. So that's I don't have like a solid answer on that, but I'm just saying, maybe as a musician, we also have a responsibility if we're in the spotlight to say, well, I did this thing, I created it, but now it is my responsibility to say, well, if I can't do this anymore, maybe I just shouldn't and do something else and figure that out. Because I'm sure that James has still a lot of things to offer to the world in other musical ventures. I'm actually a fan of his solo albums.
His solo albums,
yeah, they're really good, especially the first one. Amazing.
But I think the problem here with this artist is the difference between studio and live. Because in the studio stuff, still, I mean, kind of with help and a lot of repetition and a lot of like fine adjustment in the studio, he gets to make good records still. I mean, I don't like the music, but he doesn't sing so horrible like live.
Yeah, but is that authentic? Like, why? Why? My point is also, like, there's so much stuff. And there's bands like Kiss who are like open about it. It's like, there's no need for a new Kiss album in the world. Like, nobody needs that.
No. Yeah, right.
This works. We are just gonna go on stage and put on a show and play the hits.
The other thing is,
you know what I'm saying
about replacing band members, is that I think most of fans will not take it good and will not understand it as, oh, now the show is better. They are more drawn into personalities and people and like celebrity, this kind of thing.
True, but do you really think that for the Dream Theater fan base that is the case? Because that is a band that always prided themselves on being able to deliver the best possible musicianship.
But how would you feel if Petrucci is not there anymore? Like, you have Tosin Abasi.
I
mean, you like Tosin Abasi. Let's say
that's not a good comparison, because Petrucci, like, he's still able to do
tomorrow. He's
what
not
he's
able anymore. or he starts slacking badly for 1 or 2 tours, and then he decides.
And he should hang it up. And for that bin, like obviously you don't get to tell somebody when to hang it up as a musician ever.
No.
But I'm just saying, then he's fulfilled, like he's given so much to the world of guitar playing and music, like more than most people. Is there really a need? And I don't know his financial situation, right? But like just from an outside perspective, as a consumer of his art, is there really a need for Petrucci trying to be 1990s Petrucci and failing? I want to hear 2030 Petrucci, who maybe can't do all the fast picking anymore, but then he maybe gains something else in the process. Like there's so many artists who have gained through aging and maybe not physically being 100% able to do that thing they used to be able, gaining a new way of making music, a new insight, a new, like more evolved, more wise, more grown-up version of themselves that doesn't need the physically intense stuff. That's what I'm saying. And I can totally see John Petrucci doing that because he's just fucking great. He's awesome. Now, with James Labrie, that hasn't happened. Like also because there's no space for him to do that in the context of Dream Theater. They're still playing Take the Time, and he fucking can't sing it.
That's the hardest song on the vocals.
Yeah, and how long are you gonna force this poor man to do something that he clearly physically isn't able to do and hasn't been able to for the last 10, 15 years maybe? Like I don't get it. I really don't get it. Because he clearly isn't happy doing it.
I think at the end, if a band is a company, I mean, it's not just for people who are listening. A band is not the band. It's like 100 people, making this whole thing happen. Booking, technicians, management, promotion. There's a lot of people that belongs there, and I think if you take it as a company, and you start selling the shows without this guy, individually of how he performs live, you're gonna lose a bunch of clients because this is not Dream Theater. That happens with Pantera right now, for example. I like Pantera so much, the music, and I don't give a single damn if there's another drummer and another guitarist. Even they didn't choose not to be there, but I'm more like prepared to enjoy it. Like, it's not the Pantera from the 90s. And that's it. I don't know. I saw Limp Bizkit in Berlin, and the bassist was not there. Did I not enjoy it? No, it was great. It was the songs that I wanted to listen to. Yeah. The energy, the vibe, it was a party. And
but that's a good point because like the bass player not being there didn't contribute to it not being a good thing. Maybe it was just a matter of putting on the best show at that point in time under the best circumstances. Now with Dream Theater, that's not the case.
That's not the case.
It's really not the case. That's a different situation. So I mean, we've spent quite a lot of time on that.
But can you separate on yourself?
Yeah.
The skills from the creation.
So I think what I would say for myself, like there's a couple of things in the set and things that I've done where I know at some point in the future, I'm not going to be able to play that anymore. That point is not now. But I think it's a responsibility that each of us has to really like check in with yourself and to assess the situation. Like, what can I do to stay relevant and to stay authentic, to stay true to what I do? Even though I'm changing as a human being. My body is changing, my mind is changing, my experience ratio is changing. And I don't want to be playing fucking out crosses, struggling with the arpeggio section when I'm 55. Like, fuck that. And I don't want people to pay tickets to see me struggling with that song at 55. Like, what is the point?
I've seen some...
Get me that 15-year-old... Japanese girl to go on tour with me and play that,
and you do rhythm section,
right? And then just get myself to a point where I can accept that.
But that's really hard to accept as a human being in general, not only as a musician. That you reach your best point, You were raised always. Were like looking forward for the next step. That everything's gonna get better. You're gonna get stronger and wiser. And this. And there's a point in which shit starts to reverse in the future. Your body's not getting better. Your mental capabilities could. That's on you. That's really random. But one thing for sure is that the body starts to decompose, and you can only struggle a lot.
That is so depressing.
To slow it down. You cannot stop it. You cannot continue. This.
What are you saying, dude? I'm gonna be 25 forever. I really don't know what you're talking about.
Well, in one thing, we have all of these stages in life, and what you're saying is, in one point, you will not be able to do the fast stuff because of your body, or because now you're mentally somewhere else, and it's something that should be more like brought on the table. But imagine like going to a party, like, hey, have you thought about your death? And have you thought about how you're not gonna be able to do this and that? I think it just happens, and you have to, every time you realize you're doing something less, or you're starting to get worse at some stuff, it just happens, and then you're unprepared.
Yeah,
seeing it happening,
and it is going back to what we were talking about earlier about sacrifice and what you like give and take. What do you sacrifice? What do you gain? And I think that, sure, like some of your capabilities as a human being diminish over time. But I also really do believe that it's our responsibility, especially as musicians, to keep growing and to keep learning. And it's like one of my favorite artists ever, Scott Walker. Don't know if you've ever heard of him.
I was born yesterday.
Just a baby. So Scott Walker, he died a couple of years ago, I think late 70s or early 80s. Like at the age of late 70s, early 80s. And that was a human being that throughout his career never shied away from breaking ties with the past and just completely reinvent himself. And especially his latest work, his last few albums, like the second last thing he released was a collaboration album with Sun, like the drone doom band Sun.
Yeah.
So here's this 70-something dude who started out as a crooner in the Walker Brothers and being basically the American answer to the Beatles in the 60s.
Wow.
And here he is in the late 2000s recording a collab album with one of the like
that's
craziest, artsiest, indiest like bands ever.
That's a really nice path.
Amazing. And he just he never really cared, to my knowledge, about public perception too much, or just staying with one formula, because that's really what it is. Like if I'd be on stage in my 60s playing Acrosses, I'd be sticking with a formula that worked for me like 30 years ago, and then maybe it doesn't stick anymore. And I think our responsibility as musicians in this world, as creators, is to keep evolving and to keep checking in with ourselves. Like, what is our mission right now? What can we do to keep innovating, to keep it fresh for ourselves, to not repeat the same formulas and to stick to the past? I mean, everybody has their own path, but that's how I see it.
How do you see your music?
It's fucking shit.
But the art of creation, is your music a tool for a purpose?
A tool for a purpose? Specify.
This music, these songs, these messages, these lyrics put out in the world, do you think they can do something to the minds of people that will continue pushing humanity somewhere?
100%. 100%.
In which direction, and which messages are you urging to put out?
That's a very good question.
Thank you.
credit where credit is due. Wouldn't the applause be more appropriate? Like, give yourself a round of applause, Tico.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. See, this you learn in India. No, accept the applause.
Like I said, everybody's on their own path, and there's people who can have, or even as I'm trying to like navigate an answer, I feel like what I'm going to say is complete bullshit. So I was going to say, like, there's people who have a message, and then the message is just, you know, like the music serves the message, and it's like an overt message. I don't know what the message could be, but like a political message, like a socially conscious message, driving things forward that way. And then the music is supporting that. And then there's people whose message is like the medium is the message, right? Where your emotional authenticity and your journey and your experience is communicated through the music, and that is hopefully inspirational for people, and you have to stay true to that. But like, while saying it, I'm like, nah, that's complete bullshit, because like, who gets to say what the message is that is more important?
The listener.
It's like, yeah, exactly. Like, you don't get to decide what you don't have that authority. You have the responsibility to be authentic and to really navigate and get to know yourself. Like, where are you? What do you have to say? Which is more difficult than people realize as an artist. It's like, yeah, just say what's up, and like, what do you feel? Like, write a love song.
Today's the hottest day of the year.
No, dude, like, I struggle with this so hard, because I know I have a voice. I know I have an audience. I have a sphere of influence, and the things that I say and post, like, I may not be Barack Obama in terms of reach, but there is a reach, and there's an audience, and there's like a responsibility that comes with that, where I have to think about what I say and do. And is it, when I say something, is it going to make a positive contribution, or is it maybe going to make a negative contribution? Can I live with myself if it makes a negative contribution? And there were times in my life, in my career, where I wasn't so sure about what the things that I've done and said and engaged in did. And we can talk about that if you want to, but it's like, just as a, and that's a really strange feeling if you're like, where you're thinking like, I know what I'm trying to say, I know what I'm expressing, I know where I stand on all these issues, but do I cut back? Do I not say anything in order for me not making things worse? Or do I ruthlessly like fight for my voice and just think, well, take it or leave it, fuck this, this is my take on things. I don't care if you disagree or whatever. So here's 5 more songs hammering that point home. So I really struggled with that position over time.
There's always the point at which you can then 1 year later figure out that you were wrong yourself.
Yeah, 100%, exactly. Like, your take on things and your experience right now is just a momentary thing. And in 10 years, you're going to be looking back and like, what a baby I was.
And how can you stay authentic in that point? Because you have to be in the moment. You have to.
Exactly.
You should maybe try a little bit harder to not only scratch the surface of the problem, which is a problem now. I don't know. We can talk about the rainforests are on fire. Okay, you can think the rainforests are on fire, but in 2 months they're not going to be on fire. So you have to start to scratch until you find the thing that really made you sad, and it's not only this symbolic problem. And you can put that into whatever situation. People are killing each other. People are bad. Okay, that comes and goes and happens. Sort of specific things, but how is it possible to address those things that are touching you right now in a way that you can still listen to it
Yeah.
when that stillness happens.
Yeah, beautifully put. And I think that is the challenge. That is the musician's or the artist's responsibility to figure out a way where you can be mindful of the risk and have empathy and an overlook of what it is that you're saying and what it could potentially do, and figure out a way to stay authentic to yourself, figure out what is driving you, what are your motivations, really work out what it is that you're trying to say, and then find a way to say it that is actually contributing and making a positive change in the world, and not just contributing to the problem.
Yeah,
Right?
the division is because I think once you start rooting for one vision or one point of view, you're gaining enemies. That
True, yeah.
probably you don't need them as enemies, and
But I wouldn't look at it as enemies. Like there's,
they're against you.
yeah, that's a very combative
Yeah.
way of thinking about it, which is fine.
It reminds me, it reminds me to Roger Waters, for example. He's someone who's like very politically engaged, and he has these visions, and he stands by him.
Yeah.
And by this, he's catering to the people who are thinking like that, exactly. But at the same time, he's letting go of.
He's problematic for me. Like I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan, and I also followed on his solo career. I saw him play a couple of years ago, playing The Dark Side of the Moon, I think. So love his work, and I'm not even saying what I would agree with in terms of the political views that he's expressing, on which and so there's things that I do agree with, things that I don't agree with. What my problem with him is that I appreciate the intensity and the honesty and the research that he brings in, and he's got really good points, and he's a good dude to be expressing those things, because when he says, I have done the research and all of these things, he's usually right. Now, the problem that I have, again, like not taking any political stance on where he stands with Israel and all these things that are really important to him, just saying, like, agree with him or not, this is a dude who has looked into these things, went to those places, talked to a bunch of people, has a ton more life experience and a long career and contributions he's made to the world in general than most of the people criticizing him combined.
Yeah.
Right? Again, not taking any sides, but just saying, like, he's earned that voice.
Yeah.
Now, the problem that I have, though, is that he is always, he apparently also loves making enemies. Like, when he's making his points, it's like, oh yeah, I made this research, and you don't, you're a fucking idiot. You're a bigot, you're this, you're this. So he's very, like, he loves to attack people back. And I think that's his right. And it's also a generational thing, maybe. But I think that there's layers to having a conversation, and there's possibilities to bring those points across without being a dick. And he loves being a dick.
Yeah.
He'd probably agree with me.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's my point. Like, you have to navigate to what's authentic to you about bringing those points across. And I think that I haven't always managed to bring my points across without being a dick, and without causing damage to some people. And I do regret that. And that is like a mission that I want to be on, to better and better navigate. First of all, to always stay true to my viewpoint, and to have that confidence throughout life's crazy up and downs. And even if I'm on a downward trajectory with my own emotions in my life, I want to stay true to that vision, and to recognize the fact that I have some things to say, and I'm thinking deeply about some of the questions of life, and I think I can make a contribution about some things. But then also having like better and better overview and empathy and foresight about how to and to whom to express those views in order to make a positive contribution instead of a negative one.
Talking about positive influences from you, you mentioned you're doing these coachings, right?
Yeah.
In which direction do you take them? In which area are you taking on board with? So you're coaching musicians, right?
I'm coaching musicians. So my thing over the last couple of years has evolved to coaching people on mental health. As musicians and artists, coaching musicians and artists on mental health and creativity. So I call it creative coaching because I'm not a therapist and I can't claim to be. The best thing that I can offer is to give insight and understanding and to be the person of trust and authority on subjects that artists and musicians feel comfortable talking and opening up to, and then honoring that responsibility by navigating, like, what can I help you with? How can I help you with? And where is the finish line where I can't help you? And I gently have to prepare you to go to a real therapist and to keep deepening that work on yourself. And so that's basically what I see my job being, like being an intermediary. And then you might ask, like, why is that even necessary? And I found out that, myself included, as musicians and artists, we are often very attached to our problems and our certain, those sides of us that we think make us creative, and give us these real raw emotions to express, but also destroy our lives. And we are often very apprehensive to the thought of working on those problems to the point where we feel like we're not ourselves anymore. We can't write the things we write. We can't express the things we want to express anymore if we suddenly feel that all is quiet and there's no noise in our head and there's no difficult relationships to write about and no heartbreak and everything. And I think that's fucking bullshit.
That's destructive.
And I think that's a myth that we in society we kept feeding,
romanticizing
decades, romanticizing it. Because I really do feel that if we are, as creative beings and having a voice and a viewpoint, that viewpoint gives us those skill sets and that creative energy that gives us a really good way and to navigate and to transmute those difficult things that we experience, and maybe the trauma, to really get into the terminology of the topic, transmute and work with the trauma that we may be carrying from childhood, from later experiences. But we tend to confuse, in the artist community, we tend to confuse that trauma, that hurt, those problems within ourselves with the art itself. We use our skills to express those things, but if we don't have those things to express anymore, that doesn't mean we lose our creativity or our skills go away or whatever it is. That's up to you. That's our responsibility to stay relevant and to stay authentic. And that also means having a responsibility to getting better if we're not doing well, because you only get to express these difficult things to a point where your body and your mind are not able to do it anymore. And your responsibility as a musician is also to stay healthy and to stay able to create and to refine and to grow and to learn. And if you don't work on certain things that really mess you up, and if you continue to allow those things to mess you up over a long period of time, you are basically not honoring that thing. You're not honoring your responsibility as an artist, I feel. And so this is where I come in. I help people to navigate that.
That's really important, first of all, and that's cool that you took that responsibility on top of your responsibilities, like your personal projects and a career.
That makes it sound like glorifying. It's not like I woke up in the morning, I want to do this for my community. It just happened. It kind of evolved into this thing, and part of that is that I don't feel like I have very much to offer in terms of traditional lessons. Like I've taught guitar to a shit ton of people, but I never feel like I've taught anybody anything that somebody else couldn't also teach. Like it's just a thing that you do to make money and to to get by. But I've never felt like it was where I could really make a difference, and where my experience, for better or worse, and my skill set is really in the best place. And then at some point I started going into this topic and writing about this topic and putting out ebooks on the topic before that. But then during the pandemic, more and more people that I knew who knew that I was thinking about this topic a lot, had a lot of things to say, reached out to me and said, hey, like, can we talk? And then it evolved into this coaching thing where through those talks and those situations, I became more and more, I was able to provide more and more of a structure that I tested over time, and, to deepen my knowledge. And then suddenly, like, oh yeah, this is a thing now. This is a service that I'm offering.
That's also that like you're saying, you're talking openly about it, and people might resonate with it and come to you to have a conversation, to have it, to identify. And I think media, and now that is so present everywhere in daily life, I think there's an extra layer of responsibility in the messages that you're putting through. And I think one of the most difficult aspects for mental health is to realize that you yourself are having a mental health issue. Sometimes, most of the time, you're just living, you're just doing these things that you think you have to do, and you're feeling uneasy, you're feeling anger, you're feeling this stuff, and you're reacting to those impulses that you bring. But you never know. It could be not like that. You could do something to be less angry, and you could do something to be on a better place. But you have to first recognize that you're not in a good place.
True. Also, not being in a good place is relative. Like you were talking about emotional reaction, being angry and reacting to things that happen in your life. And a lot of people still think about mental health as something that you need to work on, and you become mindful of when you really have a problem. When you are depressed, when you feel burnout symptoms, like these things that are at the end of the spectrum. Those are things that indicate that you're already way deep down in a hole and have a problem that you need to fix. But it should be an ongoing daily concern, a daily check-in with yourself. What can I do on a daily basis? Like everybody knows that going to the gym is healthy. And you don't do it, and everybody knows that you don't go to the gym when you have crippling back pain. You go to the gym to avoid the crippling back pain, right? Or go for runs and do cardio and all these things that people do to stay in shape and to not get problems. So with mental health, a lot of times we're not there yet, especially in the musicians community, where we work on this and have a focus on that as much as we have our focus on practicing our instrument. But the thing is, and that's why this was a really good example that you gave, like all these reactions that we have and all these, our takes on things, like how do we feel about things in the media, things that happen to us personally, in our daily lives, those are informed and charged by our mental health. How is our mental health? How is our what are the things that we carry around with us that drive our decision making, drive our relationships, and with those things basically drive our careers as musicians as well, right? The company that we keep, the jobs that we get, our ability to function and to do what we do as musicians is really like 100% dependent on our mental health.
Yeah, and also it's just another things that now I cannot talk about other industries, but in the music world, I see that the artist or the producer or the person, the individual has more responsibilities on themselves. And you always hear those crazy stories about before, like the 80s and the 90s. You just had a bunch of people having really bad, serious problems. And the environment was just feeding it way more.
Yeah.
We have to get some cocaine for him. Come on, he's not... I mean, have you seen the Elvis movie, for example?
No, I haven't.
There's a really great biopic of the Elvis, and it talks about that specifically. That how some it's a business, and the artist was or is in some points just come on, go there, make the money, and then doesn't matter what you do when the door is closed, and that drives to horrible stuff, horrible lives being lost slowly or suddenly, families, and that drops into culture and gets romanticized on top of that, which doesn't help the new people to confront those kind of problems. And I think in this moment, with all of this explosion of self-awareness, and especially in the music industry, that now you have to do everything by yourself, and you don't have a lot of people helping you out with this and that. You have to do everything yourself. There you start to figure out that you might have to work on yourself, because you are the machine, you are the computer solving all of these problems. And you cannot just be wasted the whole day. You will not achieve anything. You cannot be tired the whole day, because you will not achieve anything. You cannot just be dragged into stage and do your thing and then get dragged again. There's a lot of self-improvement to be done. And it's a great time to be alive and young, because we have the time, we have the tools, and there will be always more tools in that direction. And we're talking about it. Whether in other generations, you just get drunk and play something and forget about it, and then.
I'm so glad that we live in an era where we get to talk about this openly, where there's so much new research emerging, and it's so much more of a open conversation about mental health, and so many things also between genders and between generations can now be talked about, that we really didn't have the tools that our parents, like thinking about my parents, they really don't possess the tools to express certain things that clearly drive their decision making, clearly influence us. There's so many things that I wish I could talk about with my parents, but can't, because they lack the tools. Not to be hard on them, it's just in that generation, nobody had the tools, nobody taught them. There was no therapy available, and there was no incentive to go to therapy and work on some shit that they still carry around, and that influenced me and
the environment. Everybody who lives around you has to live those bags you're carrying.
And I'm so glad that we as a society are able to have these conversations, even though it's still a long way to go. And to come back to music and this coaching thing, I really feel good about being a part of that conversation and being somebody who can maybe chime in on that in my little specific niche. Unlike traditional guitar education, where I see all these people who are just I think I'm a good educator, I'm a good communicator, I'm good with pedagogics.
That's a skill in itself. You can play, you can do whatever thing, but to know how to teach is another.
I know how to teach, but at the same time, it's other people do too. And if it's traditional guitar lessons, I more and more started feeling I don't think that I should be doing this and should use my time and people's time for doing this, because other people can be better in this spot. But this other area, this is something where I feel I can make more of a difference and be part of the conversation. And I really want to continue this journey.
That's excellent. And you told me you're about to record some lessons.
I did. A couple of days ago. Yeah, we recorded a new workshop. It's in German, So it's for basically the German-speaking beginner musician audience, and it's basically a video course, an intro, and invitation into mental health for musicians.
Wow.
Yeah, and then it's good timing because the thing with mental health and this whole conversation is also like the elephant in the room. We're talking about mental health as musicians, talking about mental health for musicians, is that we struggle ourselves, right? And one of the things that I have been struggling with in this area is never really feeling good enough, which is my problem to begin with. But then also that leads to me finding all these ways and excuses to not finish the book about this topic that I've been working on for the past 4 or so years, and could have published before the pandemic, even in its form at that time. And there's always like the struggle within myself where I know like I'm certainly not perfect, and I want to be at this point with my mental health and my how I deal with myself, how I know myself, and how I solved my own problems before I publish this material and get to tell other people to do. And then at some point I realized, well, that's kind of bullshit, because it's an ongoing process, and if you can contribute, you have to. It's also your responsibility to contribute in the way that you can, and then you have to navigate way at this point in time. How can I communicate this knowledge that it makes a positive contribution at this time, and then also accept that it's going to be old news in 5 years and I'm going to have to update it. So this was like a struggle that I had, and now for some reason on this tour, where I also had a masterclass on mental health for musicians at the end of the tour, and then a couple of days later coming back, now recording this video course, thinking about this material, thinking about this topic. It's another sign from up there, whatever up there is, to not be a fucking slouch anymore, and just focus on that and finish the book and accept that it's just a momentarily
to
thing.
be honest, it's you're saying so many things that resonate with what I'm struggling at the moment right now. I mean, I think I was talking with a friend, and I was telling him I have all of this anxiety inside of me the whole time. Sometimes my neck is in like pain, like when you're holding your wish to cry super strongly.
Yeah.
But I don't feel sad. It's just my body like sending signals. And he asked me, "Are you anxious about the future or the past, or what is it?" I'm like, mostly the future. And also I'm just need to sort so much shit out that I never took a minute to think about.
Yeah.
Always problems are like seen like an external thing to go and fix. You're like, shit's happening, and you always have great advice for others, and you can solve everybody else's problems, but at the end, I mean, you are still not working on yours. Your house is still a mess, and there are animals living in there.
Right.
I have a family of raccoons living inside of me. And it just, you have to get to a point in which you pay attention to the signals first. And the signals can be yourself, or the signals can be your surroundings. Like when you see that your surroundings are sending some kind of signals.
Yeah.
That you are not contributing to the room. When you get into a room, how the mood changes, because you're bringing all of this stuff with you. Or when, I know people sometimes say, "Why are you angry?" I'm like, I'm not. I'm just, but it's not one person that says that. There's a lot of people like, "You look unhappy. You look angry." I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm doing stuff, like doing stuff. So I'm having my first therapy in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Awesome. That is a good step to take.
I'm 31. I'm starting with that.
Well, I mean, I'm going to be fucking 40 next year, and it took me until last 2 years to wake up to the fact and be made aware of the fact that I, as a musician, and let's just like establish that us musicians, we are basically in the business of emotion.
Yeah.
Right? We are communicating emotion. We are lightning rods for emotions. We write songs that communicate emotion. When we play somebody else's music, we try to figure out what is the emotion, and then behind the song and the material, and then we kind of try to make that more intense. So
Channel it.
Yeah, we channel it, right? We are merchants of fucking emotion, right?
Oh yeah.
And it took me so long to wake up to the fact that despite that being my profession, I was not in tune, aware of my own emotions, and I was suppressing them because I felt like I learned as a kid from my parents that other people's emotions matter more than mine. And it is my job and my responsibility to always suppress my own emotions in order to care for others and to manage other people's emotions, because that's what my parents do. Sorry, mom and dad, but
They definitely not listen to
probably, and they don't speak English very well.
All right.
I think I'm safe, but so there's this thing in my family which is riddled with mental illness of many kinds. Like these toxic relationships prevail. I don't know anybody in my immediate family who has a very healthy relationship with themselves or their partners. And in my household, in my childhood, it was basically my mom being extremely emotionally unstable, clearly having a mental illness that I don't want to disclose, but controlling the entire household, controlling my emotions, and always whenever I felt sad or angry at anything, whoop-de-doopsie, she would have a remote emotion, an expressive emotion that would be more important and more intense than mine, and then I have to take a step back. And basically my dad's role is to manage her emotions and also shut down his own emotions. And it's like this vicious
atomic
cycle.
bomb.
So sorry for making this about me. That's not the point. My point is that it took me a long time, since you said 31, and now it happens that you go to therapy. But then also I initially felt bad about the fact that it took me such a long time to come to terms with this thing that I clearly did for my entire life, and which had also wreaked havoc on my relationships and my career in many instances. Because then I would see, here's the thing. You just told me that other people will hype you up to the fact that you are angry, and you're like, no, I'm not angry, but other people feel it. So you are externalizing, you're expressing these emotions even though you're not aware of it.
They're escaping out of you.
Yeah, clearly you can't contain them. And that sometimes or oftentimes will absolutely devastate the things that you're trying to do, because you can't control yourself. You're not even aware of the things that you're doing. And you being 31 now and having an experience and having a mindset where you're tackling these things head on, you really get to work with that and get to utilize your emotional and your intellectual capabilities to analyze what it is you're doing and course correct now with the help of a therapist, which you probably wouldn't have been able to do at 21. Because you didn't have the knowledge, you didn't have all these experience in the last, let's say, 10 years where you were a musician doing music, and now you get to look back with the help of a therapist, think, okay, what are all these situations where I think now, looking back, that my emotions got the better of me and didn't even know it, and how much better could I have acted, how much different things could have been. And so I'm saying it's a positive thing. You're 31, you're doing this beautiful thing for yourself, and you also have amassed enough experience to feel the urgency and to really have so many different examples in your own life that you get to see, like, up close.
There are so many awakenings in our lives. I mean, being the first one, when you stop being a baby and you start using words, and then I think this is the latest one. My latest update was this year, a couple months ago. couple of weeks ago, I will say, I was just experimenting all of this pain, physical pain, and it was impossible to me to finish a fucking project. I mean, music is what I always think about. I came to this planet to make music, and in the last month, I have done 0 of it.
Yeah,
and it's like, what am I doing instead? I'm just a fucking piece of trash, just hoping to have the energy from the inside to finish those things and live the reward of finishing them.
Yeah.
Like this reward system is so fucked up.
Yeah, but this is exactly what I've been saying earlier. A lot of musicians don't think that these are real goings-ons. Like if you repress your emotions and you struggle with your emotions, there is a physical component to it. There is a limit to what you can store in your body. There's a limit to your energy. There's a limit to your creativity, and I also want to talk about that. But there's all these batteries that you have, and at some point, especially if you repress your emotions, where are they going to go? They're there. Like, do they just disappear into the ether? No, they are being stored somewhere in your system, in your nervous system, in your body, which is also what trauma is, which is a subject unto itself. But you are carrying this shit around with you, these unresolved things. You're carrying this heavy fucking backpack, and it just gets heavier and heavier and heavier every year.
Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, and at some point, you feel drained of energy, you feel drained of creativity, and you don't know why. And there is a correlation, and there's a lot of signs now in these last couple of years emerging that really backs this up. So,
holy shit!
Yeah, so it is only completely logical
Wow.
that you would reach a point where you feel drained and you feel tired and you can't do the things that you do. And this is why it's so important to make this an ongoing daily thing, to work on these things and make an effort, especially when you're doing okay, and not just in the moments when you're doing not okay, to work on that and to keep yourself happy and keep yourself healthy and keep yourself getting deeper and deeper into what drives you and what are the problems that you carry, what are the problems that you inherit from your parents, from previous generations, what is the trauma that you carry around with you, so that your backpack stays at an acceptable level, and when you do get the call from the big band and you do have this idea that you need to record, and you do have this songwriting sessions with some of the biggest songwriters, and let's just putting out like theoretical things here that could happen, so that when these things do happen in your life, then you actually are able physically, mentally, emotionally to function in those scenarios and to bring the best thing that you
push forward.
To push forward, and also to reach your goals in all of those scenarios, and not be held back by this huge fucking backpack with 20,000 bricks in it.
Well, at the end, you will not achieve your goals. That will make you even sadder.
Yeah,
it's not that
100%.
It's not that you're released of the obligation of fulfilling your dreams. It's like, I have no dreams anymore. I'm great. No, you have that in you. You dream. You see yourself in places. You see yourself doing these things. It's not your choice. Those thoughts and ideas are there.
Yeah.
Those impulses. Your soul is tuned to a frequency. You cannot change that. You just can't change if you are listening to it and you're living through that. I could say, my bag of meat and bones can't just say, I will just study accountancy and make money and buy stuff. No, you're just escaping from the problem, which is the missing. You're not tuning what you're doing to the frequencies of what's inside of you.
Yeah.
And that's also authenticity. Living the dream is living.
And what is the dream? What is your dream? All of those, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. There's all these layers, and you are your childhood experiences, your trauma, the way that your personality shapes, the way that you were brought up as a kid. All of those things directly lead to what it is that you think you want to achieve, that you think you need to do, the things that you feel, how you react to people. All of those things that you do, that you want to do as a musician, your goals, your aspirations, your dreams, those are fundamentally influenced by your condition, if that makes sense. And to really get to know that condition, what shaped you, what influences you, what are like the core beliefs, but also the core fears of who you are as a personality, will give you so much insight into why you want the things you want, why you need the things you need, why you want to achieve the things you want to achieve, and then find a healthier and a cleverer and more prepared way to go about these things. Like, I'm by no means as high up the ladder of on this path as I want to be, but what I find every single time that I get to know myself better and my motivations and what really made me the way I am today, gives me so much more freedom in the next situations to react and to really choose my words, choose my reactions, choose how I use my time, and don't feel driven and compelled and forced to do things a certain way like I have been in the past.
Right. That's what I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward also to take a pee. Do you like being peed on?
No.
No? Then we take a break.
No.
Dude.
Do you like being peed on?
Okay. So, we're going a little bit back from before the pee conversation. I have been absolutely taken away from creativity itself. The fact of bringing new shit to existence. And that's painful, because I believe also, like many others, that we are antennas, and there's something, like you said, up there, and just comes through our minds, and then it's an idea. We're not looking for that, and as a creative, we have this responsibility or this relationship to those ideas, in which, okay, hey world, I just got this message, and here it is. It's in the shape of a painting, in the shape of a movie, in the shape of whatever, in the shape of a book, or in the shape of whatever expression, right? It's in one point it's humbling, I think, because it's not my idea. It's not the thing I had. It's like this connection with something higher, which is the muses, this. I'm bringing down these things for you, and I have been not doing that at all. I lost it, and I hope now that I'm taking kind of a break from all of this, how we started the conversation, I'm taking a break from all of that.
Yeah,
I can reconnect and readjust and take the raccoons out of my house, and there's some homeless people in the porch. I had to take care of all the house where my mind is living, and get back to business, open business again. And
can you see how that neatly correlates, this phase that you're in, this housekeeping thing that you're doing, with also having this deadline and this opportunity to play your own music on stage? How you sacrifice something that you thought was really important, and then you suddenly get a completely new opportunity and level up.
I feel this whole producing and making music for others and giving these services had something more to do with being celebrated, like to be this person who gives value to everybody, and everybody's thinking well of them, like, oh God.
Yeah, people pleasing.
Yeah, that is my thing, and I think.
Can I interrupt you for a second, please? Just because now I feel like a little bit in the coach seat here.
Yeah,
all of those things that you shared here really correlate neatly. And I think from my point of view, if I be allowed to share my opinion,
Please.
I think first of all, it's really good timing. It's really commendable and brave that you're prioritizing your own mental health, which is also prioritizing your physical health and everything else, the health of your family, because you have to put on your own seatbelt first. So all of this is great, and already you're thinking about these things is shaping your career and your new path, and is priming these next couple of months for you to course correct, to do something where you have more to say and where you have get back your creative energy and your drive to really get to do something that is important for you, and where you now get to change other people's lives through performing your music. And I do feel like, from a fake therapist point of view, I feel what you said about your emotions and your anger and the jobs as producer. It really does sound to me like there's a lot of things that you thought you had to swallow up and hide away in order for other people to have their place in your life. And now it's time to let all of that out of the cage. I think that's the housekeeping you need to do. Just like I had to own up to the fact that I had not honored my own emotions and not really allowed myself to feel all of the things that I felt. And I had taken the road to express those in my music. But that didn't help.
No.
Right? Because my batteries then also began depleting. I think that's what just from my current view of the situation, I think that's what you're feeling. There's way too many things that you've accumulated, and now before you can accumulate more things, and before you can again be a help and of service to others, whether it be producing or performing or creating other things, you need to give those repressed emotions their due and really do some work on all the situations that you have experienced as a human being, as a musician, which made you feel certain things that you may not have been feeling fully, and which have accumulated in your body and system. And then I am very sure that you will feel like an enormous freeing of energy in that process, which coincidentally is very much needed in your bringing your solo career on stage.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. And the moment I had a small revelation again when this opportunity was presented to me. I mean, the concert is still not booked, still not they're still figuring out where to make it and blah, blah, blah. I just burped. But there was emotions coming out. I'm doing...
I burp all the time.
Yeah.
To the side.
What I figured out is I was waiting for an external minimum input. Like, hey, would you like to play with us in this concert? And I'm thinking, I have the songs, I don't have the band, I don't have the rehearsals, I don't have shit, but I'm so willing to make all of that shit happen, to give my 300% to make that shit happen.
But you need to be invited.
Yes.
From the outside, which is people pleasing deluxe, my man. And I have the same thing, like, to the outside world, I do this, I have all these things going on in my career, and I tour and I play for these bands and blah, 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 blah. And it can look as if I'm really in control and if I'm like this really dominant personality doing my thing. But the reality is, as a people pleaser, as somebody who's learned to take a backseat with their emotions in order to make other people with bigger, more unstable emotions feel good.
Take this spotlight.
Yeah. I need to be invited to the party. I need somebody else to tell me that it's okay. And that's my problem. That is the thing that I have to navigate and check in with myself on a daily basis if I fall into that trap again.
Oh.
And that is why. I can see this in my own trajectory a little bit. So maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's something to keep in mind. And maybe
for me, this is super valuable. I mean, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, creative shit.
And oftentimes people pleasers are people pleasers in certain areas in their life, and then as kind of like a balance mechanism, are really dominant and charismatic and like forceful in other areas of their life. And this is all, like, I think we're the same in this way, that we have a lot of energy that we put into certain things and just keep creating, keep building, keep pushing. But then and like
I think I am where I am dominant and release all of this shit is when I have the chance to entertain people. Like I was on a birthday some weeks ago and they had karaoke and I didn't know. I knew two of those people, and I was like a party master, like out of nowhere. I was like, the whole day it's just I'm this. And then I had a spotlight, and I'm like, and then I saw, the guys were sending me a message. Oh, everybody loves you, and you were so fun, and come, we have to see each other more often, and this and that. It's like, okay, because in my daily life, in being alone, and I just see myself as the weakest, like, piece of crap in the carpet. And then there are these moments in which you release this other person living inside of you, and it kind of works socially. But you don't want to be that the whole fucking time. You don't want to be a fucking clown the whole time. There has to be like...
But can you see how the invitation brought that out?
Yes.
You had to, like, you had to be allowed from somebody else through the situation to step into that thing, which you also are.
Well, there was a lot of bullying into my childhood. That's why.
Oh, really?
They fucking bullied the shit out of me for years.
See?
Constantly, every day, every fucking day. I was not allowed to shine because the other ones were turning everybody against me and just laughing at me, and lots of bullying. And I also I was this I also had this energy like a klugscheißer, because my parents were putting a lot of effort in explaining me shit, and they got me a computer when I was 6 or something. It was like they were really like pushing, and I could play chess as very young. I could read very young. So for me, school was like playground,
right?
And I could finish my shit first, and then like help others. And I was always like on a rush to finish my shit in 5 minutes, so I could help others and have this like add value to them, and then they consider me like a good thing to have around. Whereas when there was nothing to be done, no homework or no nothing, where I was just like playing, I was just being harassed the whole time, or being called any kind of names and just bullied the whole fucking time, until the moment came that I could like help them with English or math or something like that. I was like, fucking, and then that was my reward. Like, I'm not being bullied. I reversed. Now I'm dominating this shit with my knowledge or my skills and shit. And that translates to what I'm doing right now with this whole music production, all of that. And I feel something I wanted to mention shortly is migrating. That was fucking crazy. Changing country, right?
Yeah.
You give yourself the opportunity to really, like, all of these persons and places that remind you of those bad upbringings. You just change scenario, and that helps a bit. But it helps. It's like a Kickstarter. You have a chance to really go and restructure yourself, because nobody knows you, so you can really start from zero. But I did a mistake of not really reforming everything. I was 25. I was like working on the outside world.
True, but also, you know the saying probably, wherever you go, there you are.
There you are. And there you carry the same shit you have been repressing.
And it's not, so yeah, of course you would be, when you immigrate to another country, you would have the chance to like completely start from scratch and build a new environment and do everything over. But you never really do that. Nobody ever does that, because wherever you go, there you are. You carry your own experiences and your trauma and your psyche with you, and then that creates the same situations in the form of different people and new opportunities over and over until you solve that problem, until you are aware of those patterns. So this is not a you thing. Like, none of us has reinvented the wheel with these things and realizations. It is just our duty to get to know better and better and better ourselves, and what leads to what are the situations in our childhood mostly that lead to us recreating these same problems over and over again. Like, somebody recently said to me, "Oh, it is I, creator of my own problems."
Yeah.
Over and over again. And it really makes sense, you telling these stories about the bullying and how you slipped then into a certain role, which I can highly relate to, by the way. Very similar things going on. And it makes total sense how that would really shape, those situations would really shape the entire trajectory of your later professional life, because those happen at a point in time where you are the most malleable, the most vulnerable, and your psyche is very open to change and to influence from the situations that you encounter. And like, I really want to take a little moment to talk about what trauma is, because I think there's still like so much misconception. And until very recently, where I really had to like take a hard look at myself and like really get to know the topic and how that impacts my life and my relationships, after certain fires started burning uncontrollably in my personal life, I still had this idea of trauma. That's something, you know, when you're in a very traumatic, when you're in a war zone, you fought in Vietnam, and then you see death and you experience like these horrible things, and that's what trauma is. And then traumatized people, you know, they go through these crazy experiences, and then they get reminded of the helicopter every time there's an AC or something, which is also like a thing that is portrayed in the media in a lot of movies and
that was the reason for this, for starting giving cocaine to people.
That was that notwithstanding, but so here's
that was the beginning of it. Yeah.
And so now there's a new understanding of trauma emerging in the last couple of years, and the best book on the subject, which is The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, it's just 10 years old. So this is like in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah.
So it's really new, and it really did shape my view on what it is, and what it, like, if you break it down to what my understanding of it is. Depending on your upbringing and your genetics and your earliest experience, you have a certain level of stress tolerance, right? And in those years where you're the most vulnerable and the most influential, you know what I mean? If there's anything that exceeds your level of stress tolerance, the overshoot, anything that's above that threshold will, through your body's ancient systems of self-defense, will be stored in the body. So you can experience stress to that threshold. Once you experience a situation that is putting stress on you above that threshold, you don't know how to handle it. You don't have the tools, don't have the muscle to deal with that situation. So certain areas in your brain and your system shut down. They just go offline.
Wow.
And you still experience the situation. You still
like an
experience
emotional
stress.
tumor.
That's not a good way to put it, actually.
Because it's there and it's occupying a space.
Yeah.
And it's not really collaborating to anything.
Well, what happens is that overshoot gets stored in your body, in your system, and then whenever you experience a new situation that reminds you of that initial stress, then you will feel triggered. That's what it is. You experience this new situation and you get reminded of what happened to you before. And it really doesn't, and that's the most important part, it really doesn't matter at all if you were a soldier in a war zone, or if you were just not able to handle the stress of being bullied. And that's why I say, like, your upbringing has a lot to do with it, like how your parents teach you to be able, and how they are examples in your life and role models of how to navigate difficult situations and how to deal with stress. That really influences your threshold of being able to handle stress. And then for some people, I am certainly one of them, their stress tolerance as a kid is so low that situations that other people don't even register with other people, like, whatever, they really go deep, and they go so much above your stress tolerance that it is actual physical trauma. And you store that in your body forever until you get to work on the problem and you realize those connections and patterns. And then you feel anxiety and you feel terror and fear and fright with things that other people just don't even register. They're like, yeah, so what? But you are there and you're feeling these things, and those feelings are real. It's not like you're imagining the terror and the anxiety of certain situations. You feel that. But then you react according to that feeling. And then other people experience you as being unreasonable, being extra, being weird, being unpredictable. And that is a much more subtle experience and definition of trauma. And I think we all, especially as musicians, where we get to and have to work with our own emotions and the emotions of the audience, we are in dire need of incorporating that definition of trauma into our view of the world and take a good look at ourselves, how that influences us, and where we act from a traumatized point of view and where we feel triggered. And that has changed my life in the last 2 years profoundly. That knowledge and that the work on that. Which is not to say that
I'm gonna check that book out.
It is insane. It is really insane.
I am at the moment checking, trying to absorb all kind of value and content and this. Everything you're saying right now, it feels it's just happening at the right moment. If we did this 1 month ago or two, I was not in this trip that I am right now. So it's really crazy shit. So what's happening here right now, and looking forward that this chapter helps the viewer or to figure out something themselves, or to figure out some introspective journeys to take.
If that happens to just one person, I'm happy.
That will be fucking great. We don't have really much time, but all of the time that we have left, I want to know more about your solo album. I have been given some tasks on it, and it was intense. It's a lot of it's this super mega professional stuff, and it took me a little bit longer to do because of these problems we're talking about. But thankfully, you know about them, and you weren't killing me. Let's talk about that music and how is it going and what's left. And do you have any plans, concrete dates or plans with it? What's up? First, what's the general thematic of your next solo album?
Okay, so one thing at a time. So first of all, thank you for being a part of that, and for giving me an opportunity to talk about that. And it's all good. Like these things are difficult, and this album has certainly been a difficult journey for me as well. And you struggled a bit. I struggled more times, more intensely, that I can tell you. So it's all good, and we got it done. That's the most important thing. So I've been working on this new solo project for the last 3 years, and it's basically just getting done. I still have to finish the mix, but the music is done and has been for a while. and it's been an intense 3-year period where, with all the other things going on, pandemic, playing these crazy big festival shows, new opportunities, being on tour all the time, traveling, this thing has been the constant in the last 3 years. And it's about 65 new minutes of music. It's called Changeling.
What does that word mean?
Now you put me on the spot. I've had to explain that before. Well, first of all, a little bit of context. I've done a lot of instrumental music in my solo career, and also some vocal music. And this album is not an instrumental album. There's a couple of instrumental tracks on it, but it's a vocal album, and it has like a full band that's on every song, and then it's augmented by different guest musicians for orchestration and all sorts of colors of sound. But there's like a main band, and part of that band is a main vocalist who's also written the lyrics. And it is a concept album, and it's one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite people and favorite artists, and I've been waiting a lot of years for this moment to have him on an album and to really be a part of what I do in a huge way. And he's shaped this album tremendously. And his name is Florian Magnus Meyer, called Morian. And he, like those who know, and he's a legend.
All right.
And also one of my favorite lyricists. And so, without going too far into the concept, we searched for an album title, and one of the songs is called Changeling. So that's not super deep. It's like, that's a good title.
Yeah.
But what it represents is the ever-changing, fluid nature of what I do as a musician, and not being like bogged down and married to one specific thing, while also retaining your individual artistic voice. And I thought that was a neat mission statement, because this album it's what I've always done in a way, but it's also like a huge departure, and it's a completely independent thing from the things that have my name on in the past. So if you listen to my first solo album, Fear is the Enemy, and then listen to Changeling, you're like, what the fuck, is this the same person? Is this the same thing? And it is, and there's the same threads and evolving.
How many years are between the two albums?
When it comes out, I think almost 10. Which is crazy.
Is it the same person making those?
No. In a way it is, in a way it isn't. But yeah, so Changeling is emblematic for how it evolves, how this is like a completely unique project with a unique set of parameters and limitations and things. And so.
All right, and you say it's 65 minutes of music. How does that happen? Let's go again. How did it happen that you collaborated with someone and he wrote the lyrics?
Well,
did he channel
I know,
thoughts?
dude. I'm notorious for not asking the question at face value. I'm sorry, but let me again go on a little bit of a trajectory here. So, what I do is always work with a concept, and I always put these limitations on myself. Like, this is what I want to do this time, which is often a reaction to what I've done in the past. So I don't want to repeat the same thing. I want to do something new. But then there's all these things you can do, and one of the most convenient things is to look for the things you've already done and then say, okay, so what can I do as a reaction of it to change these things, these parameters, and put myself in a new set of situation with new limitations. So this time, the way that happened, it started as I wanted to make a completely different album. I wanted to make an album or an EP of solo music with a concept that I'm not gonna disclose here, but something that I've had in the drawer for many years, and I can't wait to make at some point, because I think it's really cool. But then the pandemic came, and during the early days of the pandemic, I was in contact with another, like a former, like a friend and a colleague and a former associate with a band that I was in called Obscura. And then we just decided, well, how cool would it be? Because we're both not in that band anymore, but people keep asking us about the songs that we wrote for that band and to come back or not or whatever. And we've never got to play a lot of these songs live. So how cool would it be if we did a project together in that style, do a new band, bring in the other band members, and then also play our solo material with that band and get to play all the old stuff from that band that we never got to play for people. Would be cool, right? And since we don't have anything going on, now would be the time to do it. So we started doing it. But then as we got through it, turned out that he wasn't as invested in that, and it wasn't really good time for him to do that as much as it was for me. And then I had more material than him, and then it really didn't work the way that we both thought it would, for many different reasons. So he dropped out, and but at that time I already had like 3/4 of an album written in like basic form. So the decision was made to just keep going. And then as I was thinking of this material, like 45 minutes at that point in raw form, like, okay, so how now, if it's just my project, what are the things that I want to do? And so blah 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 blah, it became a Fountainhead album, but it's still in that technical death metal realm that this band operates in, and which is cool because I haven't written in that style for over 10 years, and now I get to, as a new different person with all these different experiences I've made in the meantime, and all this different music I've played, now I get to bring all of that back into that style, and the question is, okay, so what can I offer to this style of music that hasn't been said already? What are the things that I can now bring to these things that I were not able to bring 10 years ago, and update my contribution to it? So that's one of the founding things. And through this history of the album, it was also easy to make the decision that this is definitely not going to be an instrumental album, even though it is going to be a Fountainhead album. So who do I want to work with the most? Who would be the most fun, the coolest to work with, and who I've been wanting to collaborate with for a long time. And the very first name that came up with me was Florian. And thankfully he was up for it. And then we just sat together and say, so what do you want to do? What do we want to write about? What is the underlying themes here? And I already had a lot of themes. And he just ran with it. And then we went back and forth. So he wrote the lyrics, but we communicated all the time and just narrowed it down. And then also obviously recorded it together, and I produced it, and I came up with the main vocal lines. A lot of times as like, this goes here, this is the chorus, this is this I want to do this here. And then he had a lot of input with that, and also brought a lot of vocal lines to the table. We improvised together, together in the room, in the recording studio, just set the whole thing. It was just such a beautiful
That's
combination.
A really nice way to work. Like, I know maybe it happens to you mostly also, that you make music by yourself, and I think the struggle is way bigger than when you're with someone, and though you make like this kind of Venn diagram of what's allowed and what's not allowed at the moment.
Yeah, I think those are two different muscles to exercise. Like, I like working alone because then I get to really crawl into every little detail and see like how close I can get to this thing that I want to do, and then you can just get lost in your own butt, right, and disappear in that thing. That's a problem. but then when you write with other people, it's just such a different thing, because then you don't get to go all these extra miles to make it super, super specific. And the goal is to make it a compromise, make it the best compromise that it can be, because there's multiple now, and everybody has to feel seen and heard and appreciated and included in this music. It's like you're not working in a vacuum anymore. So you need to bring those people in. You can't just say, let's collaborate, I want you to do this. Like that doesn't work. That's not collaboration. So you really have to be mindful ahead of time. Like, what do you want this to be? What can you allow this to be if it's your name on the cover? And on this album, it's really interesting. There's like over 50 people on it, and like 4 people are the core band, and then the rest is auxiliary, so to speak. And with most people, it was extremely easy to work. And then with one or two people, that question of like who does what and what's the capability, how much freedom can I give you, and how would you collaborate, was extremely time consuming and horrifyingly hard. And that was really interesting experience of how differently people of such musical intensity and stature and experience, how differently they react to that collaborative situation. It was really intense and took a long time to navigate.
Yeah, that's also because you're not only doing something together with creative machines. Those are also people with their bags and their unresolved stuff.
Oh yeah.
And what we were saying is the way you interact with the world and you are perceived is also a responsibility of those bags you're carrying.
True. And I think a good band leader or good project leader, whatever, is also somebody who is very aware or becomes aware throughout the project of what the other people bring to the table and how heavy their bags are and what's in their bag, because that influences everything. And I think with this album, 95% of it were just a joy to make with people and just really cool collaborations. And then these 5% ended up taking years, almost, at least months, to navigate that and say, oh, wow, there's a lot of things in your backpack. And some of it is kind of related to my backpack. And it's like, we really gotta be careful here, dude. So,
but also being a leader means building teams, and so that you have to encounter those not really functioning ones. Then the next time you build a team, you know, how not only to not call them, but how their new role will be defined, in which they work efficiently.
Oh yeah, like in every challenging scenario. And building an album, building a team, building this whole thing, there's a lesson to be learned in every single little one collaboration.
Man, thank you so much, dude. This collaboration.
This has been fun.
I have a lot of homework now,
and I am 200% more awake than I've been at the beginning of this conversation.
Yeah.
So thank you.
That's cool.
Yeah. I feel up to tackling the rest of the day now. Earlier when we started, I was like, oh man, I feel so tired. I hope I can bring something to the table here. But like, you really made me feel
cool,
feel alive and engaged. And this, I didn't even notice the cameras.
See. And the naked man behind him also. No. Yeah. He's Peter.
No, he doesn't like to be mentioned.
He pees on his pants when someone watches him. He can record. No,
don't go there.
That was Tom Fountainhead.
Thank you.
See you.